Over the years I've been cruising, I've made many mistakes, but thanks to other cruisers I've met along the way, they suggested various tools, sites and apps that have really helped make sure I avoid making those and in fact other mistakes again. So I'd like to share those that I use on every cruise to make it truly epic, including some rather quirky and unusual ones that you may find surprising and even rather amusing. Welcome aboard, I'm Gary Bembridge. Let me start with the one I use to plan and find my cruises. When I plan my cruises, I start first with the destination I want to go to. The problem is if I then visit every cruise line website to find cruises that fit my travel dates, it becomes cumbersome and in fact a little bit chaotic. So instead I use the site vacationstogo.com. Here I can search by destination, ports I want to depart from or go to, and by dates. They have a database of pretty much every single cruise line's scheduled itinerary. For example, I wanted to do a major circumnavigation of South America in early 2026, and instead of wading through all the cruise line sites, I simply searched the region and dates on vacationtogo.com and found that Holland America, Amsterdam, is doing a perfect trip that goes from Buenos Aires around South America through the Panama Canal and back to Fort Lauderdale. Now I didn't actually book through Vacations to Go though, because I just use it as a resource because I prefer booking through my own travel agent because I like to choose things like my own cabin and tailor all the add-ons. She has now, by the way, booked that trip for me. Once I've decided the cruise and line to go on, the next key decision is choosing the right cabin. I found it really complicated again using the cruise line website because although they have the deck plans and some kind of idealized marketing images of the cabins, I can't really get a real sense of them. But I was suggested a great solution. Instead of frantically switching between the cruise line sites and searching for cabins on things like YouTube, I use a site called cruisedeckplans.com. There I can choose a ship, and as well as showing me the deck plans, it also shows me layouts of the cabin, perks and benefits of each cabin grade, past cruiser photos of the cabins, and even has links and embedded video tours that they've selected that show the cabins off. So for example, I'm just back from a Celebrity Eclipse Canada and New England cruise, and I'd used cruisedeckplans.com to choose the cabin for that. It helped me decide that an Aqua class cabin was right because I was able to explore, I was able to look at it, able to compare the different cabin options, grades, and so on. Next, I want to talk about various resources that I use to help avoid making costly money mistakes. There are two key things that I've seen go wrong for me: paying too much for the cruise and spending more than I need to go on excursions. So let me talk about what I do when it comes to managing fares first. Every time I book a cruise, I track fare changes. Now I've spoken about this before, so I won't dwell on it. I also must warn you that I'm seeing varying degrees of success in getting cruise lines to match fare reductions these days. Not as easy as before. But once I've booked a cruise, I put it into several fare tracking sites who alert me when prices change. If fares go down, I ask the line to match the new lower fare, give me an upgrade of a cabin to match the new fare that I've paid, or additional on-board credit. There are three key sites to do that, and on my blog I have an article showing you in detail how to do this at tipsfortravelers.com/fare tracking. The one that I like the most is called cruisewatch.com, although cruiseline.com is good too. I also use Cruise Critic, which shows how fares are tracking over time and show if the trend is kind of down or up, so help me know when to book. I've been successful at saving a lot of money, the most dramatic of which was an Azamara cruise where I got back over $1,000 after fares plummeted after I'd booked. Most weeks I get messages and emails from people thanking me for saving them money from this tip and resource. Next, I want to talk about resources I use to get the most important thing about cruising for me right, which is making the most of the destination and the ports that I call on. But first, a quick word about this video's sponsor. You heard me talking earlier about my Celebrity Eclipse Canada cruise. This is the A4 map from it created by thecruisemaps.com that I'm now adding to my cruise album coffee table book. This great looking album holds 25 of those A4 maps that I've started collecting of my favorite cruises. Already in here are my Regent Japan, Norwegian Viva Mediterranean, and Windstoff, Norwegian Fjords and Iceland. Each of the cruisemaps.com maps are created using satellite tracking, so it shows exactly where my cruise went and has all the ports marked. All I needed to do was tell the cruisemaps.com the ship, dates, and the start and end port. I could also have ordered them in larger sizes and framed to hang on the wall. I actually have those too. And thanks to my friends Will and Matt who created the cruise maps, you can get 10% off any order on checkout by going to thecruisemaps.com/TFT. That's thecruisemaps.com/TFT. Now, back to those money-saving resources. There are several invaluable resources that I use. First, before I decide what I'm going to do in a port, I use one of the most valuable resources ever recommended to me, whatsimport.com. They list all global cruise ports and include where ships dock, how close it is to the nearest town and site, security issues, things to do, maps to download, and so much more. It helps me decide what I'm going to do in each port: excursions, stay on board, self-explore, and so on. But before deciding, I next check how busy the port is going to be. For that, I use cruisetimetables.com. I can input my cruise and look at each port to see how many ships are in port on that day and how many passengers will therefore be there. If the port is going to have many, say, mega ships in, and so everywhere will be packed, I may decide to take that as an enjoy the ship day, or choose an excursion that's going to go somewhere more remote, somewhere more quiet kind of place. If I decided I want to do an excursion after all that, I then use some resources to look at options to those costly cruise line excursions. The three that I really like are Venture Shore and Shore Excursions Group, as I can put my ship the day of departure and they bring up my itinerary and show all the independent excursions they offer, which are cheaper and smaller groups than the cruise line. Though I also often check Viator, because although I have to search by port, they generally have an even wider range of excursions. Once I have the excursions all sorted, the next set of resources are ones that are invaluable to me once I'm actually on the cruise. Absolute must-have resource for me is an eSIM on my phone. While my mobile phone package that I've got is pretty good, it gives me lots of no extra cost roaming and data in many countries, it doesn't include many major cruising destinations. For example, on some of my recent cruises, it didn't fully cover the Caribbean islands, it didn't cover Canada on my recent Canada-New England cruise, or in fact, I was in South Africa at the end of last year. So these days, I buy an eSIM to get data, which means I can do Skype calls to landlines, Messenger and WhatsApp video calls to home, as well, of course, browse. eSIMs are best because they don't mean replacing my phone's SIM card. Now, I've recently switched to GigSky, because they have packages that work both on land, and unlike all the others I've used so far, they also work on the ship at sea. They work on 28 cruise lines that are counted at the time of recording. So for example, when I was on that Canada trip on Celebrity Eclipse recently, I was able to use my GigSky eSIM both in port and in fact on sea days. Now they're worth checking out because I saw for many people they'd actually be a cheaper and better option than buying Wi-Fi packages based on how much browsing or emails or downloading that you'll do. I was skeptical about them having a fast connection at sea, but they really did. It seems, according to the website, they use cellular at sea, but I also noted that they link with ships that have Starlink. So as I mentioned, having Skype on your phone with some credit is another important resource if you ever need to make landline calls. When my mum was alive, I used that most days to call her landline because she was actually registered blind. She didn't use nor could see a mobile phone or iPad screen to do video calls by Wi-Fi. So calling a landline was really important. I could do that using Skype. I like to stream and download shows when I'm cruising to keep up to date with the ones that I follow. As rights for TV shows and sports are very local, most streaming sites block me from watching the shows I follow at home when I'm out of the country. So to keep up to date with the latest episodes of BBC and Channel 4 in the UK shows like The Great British Bake Off, Doctor Who and so on, I use a VPN. The VPN I use and works best for me on cruises that I've discovered so far is called ExpressVPN. It means I can set my location to the UK and the sites then allow me to stream and watch as the IP address shows it as a UK one, so it lets me watch and download and stream. Another resource which I'm a huge fan of and use frequently on my cruises is the Marine Traffic app. As a bit of a cruising geek, I like to know what ships that I can see from the ship are and also what ships are in port with me. Like for example, when I was on that Canadian trip on Celebrity Eclipse, I saw a ship in the distance which Marine Traffic told me was Holland America's Zaidam. This was great because my next group cruise is actually on that ship and I was hosting a group cruise on Eclipse and many people on that were also coming on that, so we could all kind of geek about it and talk about the fact that we'd seen the ship. I was also able to see in ports like Quebec all the ships that were also there, even though they were in different parts of the port and weren't actually visible. Stuff that I really like to know. It's also great for checking the status of any ship I'm due to board to see its progress, confirm it has arrived. When I wake up in the morning, I look and see, is the ship there? Marine Traffic has both a free version and a paid version, by the way. Perhaps an unusual cruise resource I use is Dropbox. For those who don't know, Dropbox is a cloud storage site. I have copies of things like my driving license, passport, travel insurance, documents, the cruise tickets, all sorts of any other important documents uploaded there. So for any reason I get stranded or I lose my passport, I get into trouble, I have copies of all those important documents to hand. There's a free version which is plenty enough for storing those kinds of things. I have the Dropbox app, by the way, on my phone. I have it set so that folder downloads, so everything in it is available on my phone even when I can't get online. Let me talk about some more unusual resources that I actually use as well. One favorite of mine that I recommend often is themecruisefinder.com. It's a goldmine to find all sorts of themed cruises, from those arranged by the cruise lines through to, I don't know, band-hosted ones, private hobby groups. For example, on that Celebrity Eclipse cruise I keep talking about, there was a needlework group, which you can find future needlework group cruises on themecruisefinder.com. So it has a myriad of different things there. My cousin recently went on a soft rock theme cruise that she also found that way. You'll find links, by the way, for all of these resources in the show notes as well. Are there any must-have resources that you use that I have missed? If so, let me know in the comments. But to find out what are the must-do and bucket list cruises in the world and why 2 of the most popular do not make the list, join me over in this video. See you there.